Becky Meagher, and welcome to Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. Transitions. We have so many transitions in our life. I like to use the metaphor of triathlon, something I've been doing for about 11 years. First you swim, and then you get to your transition spot, and then you get on your bicycle and transition, and then you get off your bicycle and you run. And that's a metaphor for life. And we have two very interesting guests today. Elizabeth Crook already has done one show, and she's an amazing spinner to help entrepreneurs and help you figure out what can you do with the next part of your life. And she has an amazing husband, Umberto Fontana. And Umberto has an amazing life also, from Venezuela to America. And so this is so unique in that they are a married couple, but they ended up getting married a long time ago, had children, and then didn't speak to each other for 15 years, which I find amazing. So we're going to kind of delve into something rare in my show, the private parts of people's lives. And they have all this wonderful professional stuff, but how do they deal with the love in their life? So, welcome both. Umberto, particularly welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
I'm glad that you are here. Can you give us a little background? You have a fascinating background. You're from Venezuela, you come from Italian heritage, but then you were shipped off to America and ended up going to high school, I guess. Give us a little background on that.
Actually, my grandfather, one of my grandfathers was Italian.
Okay.
And my grandmother was Venezuelan, several generations of Venezuela. So I'm really 3/4 Spanish, if you will, of Spanish heritage. But my grandfather's influence in the family was such that my father lived, and I lived after that in a Italian type household.
In Venezuela?
In Venezuela, yeah. Eating Italian food, or what I thought was Italian food, which sometimes it wasn't. I came to find out later.
Okay.
But I thought of Italian as being the part that I am, and I feel very Italian. And if I walk the streets of Genoa, I see myself walking the streets. That guy looks like me, or looks like my family.
But you ended up, tell us about going to America.
Well, my father was the son of an immigrant, so he knew that there was a larger world than that. When we grew up in Venezuela, let's say in the late 40s, all that oil that Venezuela was producing came to the fore. And Venezuela was just booming. The growth, the typical growth for 10 or 15 years, the growth in Venezuela was between 10 and 20% a year, which is a remarkable growth rate. So my father decided that when we were, 14, 15, 13, off to school you go. So he one day told us, I don't remember it being a long drawn out thing. I remember my being told, you're going off to school next year in the United States.
In the United States. Poof, you're going.
And then, yeah, there was no tour of school, see if I liked the campus. None of that stuff.
Not like...
You're going off. Yeah.
And this is where you're going.
And this year, because a banker in New York, who was a friend of my father, said, my sons went there. And so my father, that's good enough for me. So the banker said, well, I'll get it done.
So where'd you go?
Went. Petty School, which at that time was for boys only.
Okay.
Founded in 1864.
Wow.
Old school, and it was a perfect fit for me.
Did you speak English?
No, no. So the first order of business was learning all the dirty words, because that's what children do. And speaking Spanish with the peers there in the filthiest way possible, because nobody else could understand. But I went on, and then I decided, I guess that's a transition. I decided from the early point that I wasn't going to bring my baggage and establish myself as a representative of Venezuela at school. I decided, no, I came here to learn. I don't know, it wasn't a conscious thing. It was probably just a bright thing to do. So I said, I'll do it the way, let's see how they do it, and I'll play that game.
So you mimicked what you
Yeah,
saw.
I went along. I became blended or whatever. So I became bicultural, without knowing that I was doing that. And I was very successful at it. And I was, got good grades, was reasonably good in sports, reasonably nice with people. I mean, I just enjoyed it. I just enjoyed the heck out of it.
Yeah.
And I had a great deal of fun. My brother didn't have that much fun. So by the time we graduated, I decided that I was going to stay here in the United States, and he decided that he was going off to Europe,
Okay.
which he did,
Okay.
and I stayed here.
And so you stayed here and you decided, hey, I'm going to go to college.
Yeah, I'm going to go to college.
America.
I was always going to be I thought I was going to be an engineer, and I looked around. MIT is where I should go. And one day, my junior year,
Junior year in high school?
in prep school, my master of English said, why are you going to MIT? And I said, because that's the best engineering school there is. Okay. And he says, what happens if you get there and you don't like engineering? He said, never thought of that. So he said, come with me, and he took a bunch of students to New Haven. And he says, here you can go study engineering, but if you don't want to study engineering, you can switch. I said, boy, that sounds like a good idea. So I went to Yale.
Yale.
Mm-hmm.
Yale. Well, you were accepted at Yale. That's quite a big deal.
Every time it seems like a very difficult thing, but it seemed to me like it was easier then. But I don't know.
Okay.
Everybody says the same thing as
Yeah.
years go by. But if you ask the people who got in, they say, well, it wasn't, I got in.
So there you were. You learned English.
By then I knew.
Yeah.
By
You
then
got
I
it.
knew
More than
enough.
just the dirty words.
Well, no more than dirty words, yeah. Iambic pentameter, I knew that.
And there you are in Yale, and then
I studied civil engineering for 3 years. I was having a great time.
You were partying.
Yeah, I was having a great time. Such a great time that the dean of engineering called me in, Dean Robley, and he said, Mr. Fontana, everybody addressed each other as Mr. You didn't call the professors professor or doctor. Everybody's Mr. Mr. Fontana, we have seen you operating for the last 2.5 years. The next semester, you have to go to class, and you have to study and do the work, because you're not going to be able to invent it. So I said, yeah, I know that. So I didn't do the work, and at the end of that, he said, you have to resign. You have to go away and grow someplace else.
Oh.
And then, if you want to come back, please let us know, and you can come back.
Oh, that's
So I
nice.
went away.
They said you could come back, mature.
I wasn't. Well, it was a gentlemanly thing. It wasn't.
It's very nice.
I flunked out not because I was dumb. I flunked out because I wasn't doing the work.
Right.
So I went to Venezuela for 3 years. Got married in the period, and worked for Procter & Gamble for 2 years, which was a great awakening. Great awakening.
Procter & Gamble in Venezuela?
In Venezuela, yes.
Okay, so a little bit of the corporate world.
Heavy duty.
Yeah. Okay.
Heavy duty.
How'd you like that?
I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh.
I enjoyed it a lot, and it turned out that I was good at it. And I got recruited by the Rockefeller people, who had an operation there called Carabobo Milk. The name doesn't mean anything to you. But it was an operation owned by foremost dairies of California. The IBEC Corporation, which is an IBEC thing for third world countries, and some local wealthy farmers. And I worked there for 1 year, because at the end of about 6 months, the first thing they did, they said, this thing is not working. The sales people are not working. So you have to restructure the sales commissions and everything and put yourself on top. I said, do I get this right? He said, yep, you got it right. Okay, I can do that. So we sold, and I made a lot of money. And I said, but then I decided I could not. I did not know anything. I mean, all I was doing was moving paper around, and so I decided to go back to Yale, and I wrote the dean, and I said, but I want to study engineering. So I said, you have to talk to the dean of Yale College, which I did. Write the dean. You didn't talk. There was no phone virtually. So I wrote him, and he said, since you want to take economics and you never took economics courses, you need 101, economics 101 to do it. So we suggest you go to Harvard summer school, take that, and if you get a good grade,
come to Yale.
Come back.
Okay.
So I immediately, it wasn't telex, it was cable. So I cabled back. He said, what's a good grade? He said, you know what's a good grade, and so do I. So just go do it. So let me tell you, I did it. I went and bought all the books, read all the books, did all the thing, went over all the classes, and of course I got an A.
Yeah.
So I came back. But this time I came back, I had a wife and a child by then.
So you had
and a dog. And a dog.
And a dog.
Wrong. The dog had not been bought yet. The dog was bought in Stratford, so we called him Falstaff. Stratford and Avon in Connecticut, so we called him Falstaff. In any event, we went back and studied economics, and I never missed a class.
You did all the right stuff there.
I did,
Yes.
and I had since I had taken all these engineering courses and science courses and all that, I didn't have to do things like what do they call the distributionals? You know, you have to have the. I talked to the dean into, why don't you just let me do it? He said, okay, go ahead and do it. So I took all the courses I wanted, picked good professors, philosophy, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. I really loved it. So there I was, by then 2 kids and the dog. So I decided, since I got all this show on the road here, why don't I, those are transitions.
Yes.
In the not knowing that they were really transitions. But they were transitions in the sense that if I had gone right instead of left or forward instead of backwards, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
I mean, there were significant moves.
Yes.
For instance, I wanted to study economics, and one of the top persons in economics at that time, we're talking 1964, was Dr. I forget her first name, Robinson, who was a professor of economics in Cambridge. I think it was Clare College, or it could have been some other college. So I went to the master of my college at Yale, and I said, I want to do this. Oh, it so happens that I know her, and this, and I'll write her, and I'll tell her about you and see what we can do. Well, time went by. I applied to Harvard, got in. So I went running back to Mr. Walker, and I said, Mr. Walker, I got into Harvard. What do you think of that? And he said, well, happens that I just got a letter from Dr. Robinson, and here is the letter. She showed me a little letter with her name on top, and said, dear Charlie, which was his name, tell Mr. Fontana when he gets here, look me up. Wow. I said, so you're it? And I said to myself, you know, Harvard sends you all this paperwork, all this stuff, all this, fill that, housing, da. And I got a wife and 2 kids and a dog, and I can go to Harvard and I know how to do that, but if I go to Cambridge, on the basis of that little letter, well, so I went to Harvard.
Wow. Well, let me let us fast forward a little bit into how we got the beginnings and how you and Elizabeth met.
My luckiest day.
Yeah, your luckiest day. And
Yes,
so
yes.
you've finished college.
I finished college, finished graduate school, did all that, and I was at American Express, New York.
Okay.
They had hired me to run the department, which they didn't exist, to sell stuff through the mail. When you open your envelope, or you got a letter saying, now commonplace, here, buy this, buy that, it was me doing that.
Okay, wow.
So it was a lot of fun because, again, do whatever you want, but do it right. So I wrote the whole thing, I selected the merchandise, I went to see them, etc. So that there was a chap there who wasn't there. He wasn't working for me. He was working for the guy the guy who sold the list, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
He says there's somebody else here that who is just getting is in her honeymoon and he'll be back. Okay, fine. He shows up from his honeymoon with her.
Oh, so that's how you.
That's how we met. That's how we met.
And you were married and she was married.
Yeah, but you know, I was respectful.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I was raised when there was no pill. I was raised where you know.
No birth control pill.
No birth control pill.
Right,
I was raised to be, you know, respectful of wives, of women, or this and that.
Good.
These were not. There were other women for that.
Uh-huh.
But not nice women. So I saw her, and we became very good friends.
So you were good friends.
The running passion in my life
Uh-huh.
was cooking and eating.
Cooking and eating, that was the passion. That's
that's been
one of
forever,
your values.
forever.
Cooking and
I don't know if
eating.
it's a value or a vice, but there it
Value
is.
and
There it
vice.
goes.
That's good.
So Morty, her husband, would invite my wife Jody and I to go to his house, to their apartment in Brooklyn, Brooklyn Heights in New York, to eat very often.
Mm-hmm.
And she would cook, and she could tell you about that. She would struggle because by Thursday I would say, "What are we eating?"
You got expectations from that.
Eventually, we became very good friends.
Uh-huh.
They left and went back to Nashville. I stayed up there, and she got divorced, and I got divorced, independent of.
There were years between them.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was.
We were in New York friends for about 3 years. And
Okay.
then Morty and I moved back to Nashville, and 2 years later got divorced.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Morty and Umberto continued to be friends because Morty had taught Umberto to duck hunt.
Oh.
And so by that time, Umberto had moved back to Venezuela to pick up some family responsibilities. But on one of his trips back to Nashville, Morty called me and said, Umberto's going to be in town. Why don't you join us for dinner? So in some ways, my first husband fixed me up. And so we started seeing each other. And, you know, it had been 7 years. So we dated for a couple of years, and then we got married.
Wow. And then you had some beautiful children, and you already had a son?
Well, Umberto had 3 children.
3.
I had a son, and then we had a son. We had a daughter. And we moved to Venezuela. I spoke no Spanish, so that was a transition.
Wow.
So she came to Venezuela like I came here, not knowing anything.
Not knowing anything. Just she loved you, and it's like, okay, I'm leaving. There you
Well,
go.
but we were smart.
Yeah?
We weren't babes in the woods because we were all more mature. for
Right.
sure.
Right.
So we agreed that she would have to learn Spanish as quickly as possible. So we hired a teacher to come to the house every day for 2 hours,
From 7 to 9.
7 to 9,
Wow. 7 to 9.
and on one-on-one, and she learned the language because she likes to talk, as you have witnessed.
The 2 of you love to talk, I can tell. So you ended up getting married, okay, lived in Venezuela. You did learn Spanish.
I did learn Spanish. I worked in Spanish. I gave speeches in Spanish.
Wow.
Presentations in Spanish. And then we were there for 12 years, but we had bought a house in Nashville to bring our extended family, his, mine, and ours, together for holidays. And then after 12 years, Umberto's mother passed away and conditions were beginning to deteriorate, so we moved back to the States.
Okay.
And then we were here for, I guess, maybe 6 or 7 years, and just had a lot of struggles and couldn't seem to work through them together. So not struggles with us, but all of the other struggles really just finally.
I got cancer.
You got cancer.
We had a child in trouble.
In trouble with drugs.
We had money problems. We had, you name it, we had it all. And so we got divorced, and Umberto moved back to Venezuela. And
Were you angry at each other?
No. I, there appears to be in my family a different way of dealing with things.
Uh-huh.
Ignore them.
Ignore them. Ha!
They don't exist.
Okay.
And so Umberto ignored me for 15 years. He would come up to visit and see friends, and I'd see him at a party, and he would walk past me like I was that plant behind you.
Wow.
Nothing, not a word.
Wow.
When my house burned down, the house that I had just bought after our divorce, he did call and say that he was sorry. And he wrote when my father died, and he wrote for when my mother died, but he didn't talk to me at all.
I wrote
Wow.
the children.
You wrote the children, yes.
Okay, so you wrote, but I guess the kids was the bond in between you.
And her unending curiosity.
Well, people would tell me, well, you know, Umberto was just here, well, how's he doing? And Umberto never, ever, ever asked anything about me during those 15 years.
Wow. 15 years.
15 years.
Wow.
And
Well, I can hear that 15 years you did not really communicate with each other. And then tell us, how did it happen that you're married again? Tell us that story.
Well, our daughter got married, Sarah Gordon.
Okay, and
She
how
got
old
married.
was she when she got married?
30, 35?
Okay. All right, so
Well,
she was
maybe
mature.
a little bit
no,
younger.
no, younger than that.
Doesn't matter.
In any
She
event,
was in
doesn't
her
matter.
30s.
Okay.
So she said to me, you know, you're going to be part of the operation here.
You're going to be in the wedding.
You're going to be at the
Yeah.
wedding. You know, Mom is going to be sitting at the same table, this and that. Let's be nice.
Be nice.
You have to talk to her. And I said, okay, fine. So we, you know, she started pumping me with this and that.
Well, I was asking about all of his family and blah, 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 blah. And
Was that at the wedding?
Yeah. Well, at
Oh.
the, during
we're
the,
spending 3 days sitting at the same table.
Okay, so you want to know, and I mean, 15 years you
tell
didn't
me,
know.
tell me, and how's Aunt so and how's so and so your cousin and this and that. So finally she said, "What do you do for fun?" And I said, "Well, I travel as much as I can." And where are you going next? And I said, "I'm going to Barcelona." And he says, "I would go with you, or I will go
Yeah,
with you.
I would go with you.
I would go with you." So I looked at her and said,
He didn't say anything. He just said,
That's an invitation, though.
Yeah, and then I went home and I wasn't going to do it. So I talked to a dear friend of mine there. And he said, "You're crazy. You're crazy. Go. What's the matter with that? You know, it's a window that has opened. And who are you to say no? So go and see how it goes." And I went. And that was that.
What happened?
She victimized me again.
What? I mean, did she seduce you, or what
Well,
happened?
not seduce me because, you know, she got into my head again.
Ah, what about the heart?
All right, the heart.
There
Okay,
we
the
go.
heart. And I had found out, I came to the realization that though I had ignored her, I had not forgotten her. And during that trip, it became interesting to me. It became clear to me that this was something that I might want to explore significantly. And that was a big transition. So I decided to start coming by here.
Like from Venezuela.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a coming by. Yeah.
Yeah, so first a weekend, then a couple of weeks, and this and that, and then she says, I have them when I brought the silver and some of the big stuff.
Ah,
You know, and now I got them. So that
actually, it was when he brought his knives. Since he's a cook, when he brought his knives and some of his copper pots, I thought, done deal.
oh, that's serious now.
That's
Cooking being
right.
such
and
a
it's
passion.
It's been quite a transition, because not a cultural transition for me. I love Nashville. Lots of friends here. I just enjoy the Southern culture. I enjoy it a lot. I know all about Nashville. I know where things are. The transition was, you know, here we go again. You know, And so
Was
it
there
took me.
fear that, oh, we're not going to get along or problems?
Well, no, but I did make certain changes in my outlook on life.
Okay, and your vision and your attitude.
I think so.
Yes.
I think so.
And what was that?
I decided that there are things that there's no reason to argue about. So if she wants to decorate the house a different way, who am I? What do I know about decorations?
Right.
The way you like it is fine for me. And that's I decided that there's only in very, very few instances do I want to insist that my point of view be taken, because we're in tune.
Very good.
And in this process, which is 4 years now, we haven't had one tiff.
Wow,
Not one.
that's amazing.
Little one. None. Come close, but not really. Not really.
Wow. So looking, you all have been reunited for 4 years now.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and you both glow. It's very obvious.
Yeah.
You glow. You glow with a love for each other, and you allow each other to have your own freedom. Having met you at a party, she was at one table, you were at another table, and you could both hold court just fine. And then you come together to leave, and it's a wonderful thing. You're independently together.
That's a good way to put it.
Right.
There were good, solid blocks, but there were some. To use the theme of this show, there were some transitional efforts that had to be made.
Right.
It seemed like it was easy. And it turned out to be easy, but it was also, but it was. They were. If I took you from here and dropped you in Paris, people say, how lucky you are. But not so easy if you try to live in Paris.
Right. There's many things.
It's you got to work at it. But for me, it's been kind of easy, and of course, having this Liz with me by my side, my being on her side, and I know very well what she does. I've known her since she was 22, for heaven's sake.
Yes.
So I know what she's like. And she thinks she's read all the pages of my book. You want me to cut off? Okay, fine.
Well,
I'm
I think
I'm getting the signal.
we're running out of time. So I
That's
want
a
to
shame.
thank you.
It's a shame.
Umberto, thank you. Maybe you can come back. Elizabeth, thank you.
Thank you.
And an amazing story. And talk about transitions. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
I can do that.